On behalf of festival co-directors Namita Gokhale and William Dalrymple and all my colleagues at Teamwork Arts, welcome back to JLF's Brave New World. Those of you who missed our earlier sessions with Laura Cumming and Madhuri Vijay, Margaret Atwood, Oran Pamuk, Siddharth Mukherjee, Nobel laureates Abhijit Banerjee, and Esther Duflo, and Oran Pamuk, and so many others, you can catch these on our Facebook page, JLF Litfest, and on our YouTube channel, Jaipur Litfest JLF. Our official radio partner is Red FM, Bajate Raho. Our session today on JLF's Brave New World is Food, Memory and Culture. Asma Khan in conversation with Rakhshanda Jalil. Food is an intangible trigger of feelings and emotions. Celebrity chef and restaurateur Asma Khan, alongside writer and translator Rakhshanda Jalil, speak movingly of the bonds of food and memory, friendship and community across cultures and continents, and in the special place they call home. Asma Khan opened her London restaurant, Darjeeling Express, in 2017. It's a place that I ate my last meal, in fact, in London just before the lockdown. And believe you me, the day it opens, I suggest all of you book your tables in advance and make a beeline for it. Absolutely scrumptious. After running supper clubs and a pop-up, a year later, she published Asma's Indian Kitchen winner of the Gourmet World Cookbook Award in the Indian Cuisine category in the UK. Khan is the first British chef to feature in Netflix Chef's Table. The series' sixth season, which includes Khan's episode, was nominated for an Emmy in the Outstanding Documentary section. Rakhshanda Jalil is a translator, writer, and literary historian. Her book on the lesser-known monuments of Delhi, Invisible City, continues to be a bestseller. Her latest book is But You Don't Look Like a Muslim, a collection of 40 essays on religion, culture, literature, and identity. Please do remember to comment and ask questions by typing it in the comment section. Do also follow our handles JLF Litfest on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get notified on the upcoming sessions. In case any of you drop off due to bandwidth issues, you can find us on our YouTube channel, Jaipur Litfest JLF. And in case we drop off, just hang in there and we promise to be back. Ladies and gentlemen, food, memory, and culture, Asma Khan in conversation with Rakhshanda Jalil.
Thank you, Sanjoy. Asma, it's wonderful to see you finally after a very long time. And I'm looking forward very much to this conversation.
Thank you very much.
Now, we've had a glorious rainy day. You are fed up with the rain and you possibly want a nice sunny day. And we've had a share of warm, sunny days. And for us, this rain has been beautiful. But like the weather, like the rain, food means different things to different people. There's a certain thing that somebody loves, and then there's something that the same thing people hate. My husband, for instance, has a lifelong aversion to curry, not curry as the West understands.
I know which one you mean, yes.
It was served to him in his hostel, in school, and he absolutely hated it. To this day, hates curry. Now, let's just dive into this conversation and talk about memory triggers, food that serves as a trigger to memory. There is this lovely, I'm sure you've read it and most people know of it if they haven't read it, this lovely passage in Marcel Proust's Remembrance of Things Past. Proust's mother sends for this little cake, the Madeleine cakes, this pretty scalloped, fluted things, and he has a bite of that. And he's instantly transported to his aunt's home. His aunt was called Leonie, and his aunt lived in a town called Combray. And one bite of little cake, and he's transported to his childhood in Combray, and having had that cake in his aunt's parlor. So we all have a food which is like a magic carpet. It takes us to our childhood. For me, it's a paratha, a triangular paratha, the way it's made in Western Uttar Pradesh, which would be given with maybe a shami kebab or a ande ki bhurji, which is like a spiced scrambled egg, or sometimes even a plain homemade mango pickle with that paratha. So for me, it takes me to my childhood, to happy days. Asma, what's your food trigger?
I think strangely enough, it's not like my real childhood that I have, and I serve it in my restaurant. It is this. If you are from Bengal, have been to Calcutta, you will know what a chicken chop is.
Yes.
It's the version of a korma, but very uniquely Bengali, and you also get this in Bangladesh, of course,
Yes.
as well. But I when I put it in my restaurant menu, and it was difficult because I was worried that people would be intimidated by the bone because it has to be cooked on the bone.
Yeah. Yeah.
But this I needed. It kind of is my most emotional after paratha as well, which reminds me of my childhood. It's ironic when you said because paratha for me it is because somehow the chicken chop reminds me of the last meal I had, and my last meal as an unmarried girl in my house. They had put mehndi on my hands, the henna, and Amma had made chicken chop, and she kept saying, "Beta, tumko khana hoga." I've made this myself, because the next day I was getting married, and I was also leaving for Cambridge, and at that time, 30 years ago, now people are less scared. At that time, there was no internet,
Yeah.
there was nothing. My parents wrote to me, and Ammu had made this chicken chop specially for me. लेकिन बहुत देर हो गई, she was doing this intricate design on my hands, and everyone kept saying, no, no, don't fast. And for me, the food was a priority. And then what happened is that Ammu fed me with her hands.
With her own hands.
With her own hands, she fed me this chicken chop and paratha. And I wept throughout. And my sister is very proud. She said, don't cry into your henna. Don't cry into your mehendi. And it was this huge sense that, I don't remember when my mother fed me with her hands because she must have when I was a child. I don't remember that, obviously, because I have a vague memory of her feeding me khichdi in a balcony. Only remember it because a crow came and ate the rest of the khichdi. So I remember that, and I remember my mother was feeding me. But so the chicken chop for me with paratha, rolled up with the chicken inside and the salan on the edge. I pass tables, and that fragrance of the chicken chop hits me, and I feel my mother's presence next to me in my restaurant. So it's a very powerful, memory for me.
Yeah,
which,
yeah.
I've always had, and this is why I will always have that on my menu.
Yeah, so we're still on the subject of childhood, and I know you spent your many years in Calcutta. So the food you serve, I've been looking at your book. I've been looking at this, and I use it, and I love to read and use some of the recipes from this book. So your menus, the food you serve at the restaurant, they are a happy mix of recipes from Calcutta, which includes Anglo-Indian recipes.
Yes.
That you
Yes.
must have had as a young girl in Calcutta. There is a Bihari influence because your mother's family is from Bihar. There are many dishes which struck a chord with me because they are from Western Uttar Pradesh, things that I had sampled, like a rogni roti, rogni tikya with an aloo ki sabzi. Nothing fancy, but so very evocative of a particular region. Let's talk of these influences and how you managed to bring them together. I was looking at the menus that you suggest in this book. There again, you're able to, bring together seemingly diverse things like the chop that you suggested, and you'll bring it together with something from Western Uttar Pradesh. Tell us what goes into a menu. What is a happy menu?
The thing is that I grew up eating interesting food. Abba is from Aligarh, and the thing is that now I realize and I can analyze it. Ammu was rice eating. Abba was roti eating. This makes a huge difference on the table. See, none of us realize this, when our parents
were both made on a given meal. Always?
Yes. And food that meant, because not everything will go well with roti. And something is only you can have with rice. Of course, you can mix it up as well. But the thing is that, the borders that normally people have that, this food is all Bengali and I grew in Calcutta, there is a Bengali cuisine, there's a Muslim Bengali cuisine, which is very distinct, but they run parallel, and for Bengalis, they own both. And the Muslims feel that the Bengali cuisine is theirs and this, which is so wonderful about Calcutta. But so the same thing happened to me on my table because Abba would see a fish, and if he saw the eye, he would probably faint. He was terrified of fish because, coming from Aligarh, never had it and had a real aversion to it. And my mother could never eat this kind of boti shoti, with roti. It was beyond her. So it is really, I mix the food and I never even realized that, this may be unusual. So because of the kind of heritage I had, normally Abba being a Rajput Muslim, Ammu being, a Muslim from Bihar and Bengal, they wouldn't have married. The only reason they married is my Nana was my father's landlord in Calcutta. And thought, Arey, yeah, Nawab family, we are Nawab family, kara do shadi. So they got them married. And after that, the real problem was the table because the food is so different. But, it just seemed natural to me that, you put things that go together.
Yeah.
But things that have got regionality, that have depth. Because our food should really be, about textures and flavors.
Yeah.
Everything, we don't eat like, the English. There's no meat and two veg.
Yeah.
It is, our food is always about an experience, whether it is about layering of an experience, about, so you start off and there's a mix of bitter, especially if you're from Bengal, bitter and sweet and all of this kind of.
Karela.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was for me normal. And so when I suggested these menus as well, a lot of people have told me who are Indian who've said this, that they never thought of putting these two together, but it works. So it's obviously some things work because there's a huge difference in our regions when our food, but there is a flavor similarity. So, an aloo dish from here, an aloo dish from there, a dal from there. So you will find all those similarities and they go together.
I want to talk a little about your biryani, which is so distinctly Calcutta ki biryani, the typical Calcutta biryani, because the biryani purists would never put an aloo in it, but yours have it. Tell us the story behind that and the Nawab of Awadh and all the rest of it.
So the thing is that I'll tell you one short story before that. Abba's entire barat came when my mother got married, was served the biryani with aloo. They were saying, "Arey, kaun si ghar ki ladki hai?" Paise bachane ke liye they put aloo and to save the cost of the feeding the barat. So abhi tak this joke, which has died 100 times. I hear this joke from my elderly 97-year-old, grand uncle. That, hi, क्या है तुम्हारे मदर के फैमिली में आलू, तुम भी आलू कर रहे हो, नाक कटा रहे हो हम लोग का, because they think this is embarrassment. That there's आलू there. But the thing, it's interesting because the entire court of Awadh was exiled to Mathia Burj, which is outside Calcutta, by the British after 1857 to kind of control this aspect, and they were kind of cut off. So there was no mingling with the local population, so that they didn't have to face another revolt of any sort. So this, I believe, there are two stories. One is that the stipend was cut so small.
And they were short of money.
Added to the thing. But recently something else has come up where one of his, and he has lots of descendants. I think he had too many wives. One of his descendants has said that actually at that time, aloo was very expensive. Potato was very expensive. So it could also have been him using a new ingredient because the Portuguese had just brought it in.
Yes.
So it's interesting. But
not native to India, Yeah,
so it was new to India. It was considered exotic. He was a man of great taste, the Henry VIII figure of our culture. So they're very interesting. But this aloo, I'm very biased. I prefer the aloo to the rice and to the meat.
Yeah,
so
it absorbs all the flavors of the meat.
Yeah. And so if there's no aloo in biryani, for me, the biryani is not that great.
Yeah, so sometimes this fusion works, but sometimes it doesn't. And I think one of the most misbegotten dishes we have is this thing called Molai, and in your UK in particular, I mean, till restaurants like your Darjeeling Express came along, there was this ubiquitous chicken tikka masala, which none of us had in India, frankly. I mean, the chicken tikka came from the Punjabi refugees, and they set up the moti mahals and, the tandoori. So we did have our chicken tikka, but this business of chicken tikka masala made no sense. These were just boiled pieces of chicken that had been dunked in an orangey sort of ketchupy sauce, and it resembled nothing we'd ever had. So what passes off as Mughlai is such crying shame almost, And we've had very few food historians. It's coming to the fore now. There's some excellent books like Salma Hussain and others who are food historians, who are going into the archives, who are looking at recipes, and who are producing dishes which are very nuanced, very sophisticated, which is not just a dunking in of masalas. Do you want to talk a little about this Mughlai business, which passes off various meat dishes,
Yeah.
Of
So I
it?
think that, it is a very abused term. It has allowed very bastardized
Yeah.
dishes to be served. And the thing is that, the logic is, isme jitna, how much ghee, cream, and
Darling.
nuts dalo, this becomes
Yeah.
Mughlai. And the problem is that, it is, this is a huge problem for me because I have argued for a long time in this country,
Yeah.
since I started my food business, that this is what happens to a lot of immigrant food, that we are seen as cheap and cheerful. There's a version of our food that people think is our food, like this chicken tikka masala. And
And
this is what will pass. And everybody thinks every Indian is making naan in their house. I
yes.
explained to them that isme na, you need a tandoor. Our houses will catch fire if you have a tandoor inside the house. And knowing Indian families, if you can afford to put a tandoor in your kitchen, one relative will move in that kitchen. Itna space mein. Nobody really has that kind of space, that tandoor. So this whole idea of what has happened is, I have nothing against Punjabis, but really the Punjabi kind of effect on our food is quite difficult to explain. And this whole idea of Mughlai food,
Yeah.
anything that they add word Shahi to it becomes Mughlai. Now the problem is that there is an issue with this as well, because I say this about my immigrant food in this country, that you cannot have my food
Yeah.
if you do not have me,
Yeah.
if you do not respect and honor me.
Yeah.
And I think the same should apply to Mughlai food. Do not wipe out sections of history books. Do not question the validity of monuments. Do not do all of this. Yet you take our food and you twist it and you call it Mughlai. You will accept the Mughlai food, but you will not accept the Mughals. You will accept Mughlai food, but you will not accept me.
Yeah.
That is so important, because the whole point is that what is Mughlai, what is not. And the whole idea that, this was an incredible regime which merged into this soil of this country. The dust that flies from Jama Masjid is the ruh, the souls, and the bodies of generations of people who have Mughal roots. And their food is something distinctive. But if you twist it and make everything Mughlai, you cannot wipe away what is quintessentially Mughlai, what was Mughal. And the other thing is, there's a lot of confusion about the fact that, a lot of people tell me, but this is, why is that Persian influence? The fact that Humayun was, spent substantial amount of his life exiled while Sher Shah was sitting in Delhi. He learned from the Persian courts this whole idea of, this grand dawat, because the real Mughals are, nomads. They came from Central Asia. Their food was very basic. So the whole idea that it has evolved along the time, but what has happened to Mughlai food and the label that is put on Mughlai food? Don't put a label, and just because you've added cream and ghee does not become Mughlai. It is very important to understand the food you cook.
Yeah.
Without taking away the joy of cooking. I think it's very, very important, because mixed in that food is the identity of people. It is about their stories and their heritage. Food becomes sacred. Why is it that every festival, every death, marriage, birth, I feel that irony as well, so that, we have the Bengali tradition of mukhe baat, they put the rice in the baby's mouth.
Yes.
A lot of Bengalis have come and done this ritual in my restaurant, because they said, we feel this is home for us, and you do what is done by tradition. So, that first grain of rice as well that is put in the baby's mouth, people come to me, they see the food, they don't see all your religion or who you are and what. So food should be something very beautiful, something you enjoy, but something you must respect. You can't just take away food. You can't separate food from culture.
Yeah.
That is what happens when everything becomes Mughlai. You separate out the culture of what that food comes from, and you take this food and you separate the two. They cannot be separated. They should not be separated.
Yeah.
That's my view, at least.
Asma, I think it's not just Mughlai. I see this politics of food being applied to different cuisines. All the time, good people, secular people, liberal people say that, oh, my heart bleeds for West Asia. I can live on mezze and kebabs, but I don't want them in my country. So there is also, let's talk a little about the politics of food. Let's call out the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little about the bigotry which is there, which affects our life at every level, and how can food be exempted. So, put very crudely, I don't have time to elaborate this into a nuanced argument, but at the risk of sounding crude, there is a certain sentiment that says, I like your food, but I don't like you.
Yes.
Yeah? How do you deal with this?
So the thing is that I say this all the time. I've said it publicly. I've said the BBC. I've said this on Trafalgar Square, where there were thousands of people who were standing next to the mayor of London. I was speaking on Eid for the Eid celebration. I was telling everybody, you can't have my food if you don't have me. That is the critical thing. It is so easy for people to take away, and I'll just give a small example. Marks and Spencer's came up with a tortilla wrap stuffed with sweet potatoes, which they called biryani. I took them on. It came out in all the newspapers that I had objected a lot.
Yeah.
Don't degrade us. And this is the problem, this whole thing, that, when they think they can do this, that they can take your food and twist it, they can like your food, but not like you.
Yeah.
I think the onus also lies on people like you and me to tell our stories.
Yeah.
Because the thing is that a lot of it is driven by ignorance and fear.
Yeah.
Bigotry and prejudice has its place, but there's also a place for storytelling, for holding a person's hand and taking them through this table of ours, that I will feed you this, but do you know that this is who I am?
Yeah.
Please understand who I am. And the thing is that if they still want to hate me, after they eat my food and I've told them the stories, I've told them all the things that why my mitti matters to me, do not tell me I don't belong here. Why this matters to me, then they get up from my table and they hate me. The essence of Islam says, I forgive them, I forgive them. I will forgive them for hating me. But I must also do my bit. The soul story, you know this, tie the camel. We all can't just leave everything to fate. We must also do our bit, tie the camel to make sure the camel doesn't run away, then leave it to fate. I think the time has come as well for the silence to stop. And this is great. It's a platform, JLF, we've spoken before, we've been on platforms in Jaipur as well. It allows, you need to not be afraid to speak up.
Yeah.
Because the silence actually...
This is important too.
Yeah, it is important to speak up. It is important to be respectful. I will respect your religion. I will respect your food. I will probably love your food more than my own food. And I will not be afraid to say it.
Yeah.
I will not be ashamed to say, I love this, I'm a huge fan of Marwari food, I absolutely adore it. And, I have fabulous memories of childhood, sharing a tiffin with Marwari friends. They wouldn't eat my food, but that was their problem. I ate their food completely. And the thing is that, it should be about sharing. It should be about, and, especially we've just finished Ramadan. We are having a huge problem in the UK, where there's massive food poverty in families, where children are going to school hungry because schools are closed and they get a free meal in school.
Yeah. We have the same problem here in India.
And everybody should say, look at what's happening to the migrants. They are starving to death on those trains. And you will hate me because of what I eat? Alhamdulillah, I eat, you eat, everybody eats. I want to wish that everybody eats. I want to wish that nobody has to have a long night of relentless hunger.
Yeah.
What they eat at the end of that, how is it that my problem? I should be glad that they eat.
Yeah. Let's talk about the picket fences we've built around food. Of course, there are dietary restrictions prescribed by religion. There's kosher and non-kosher. There's halal and jhatka. Of course, there's vegetarian and non-vegetarian. And one is all for respecting those preferences or those dietary restrictions, or call it what you will. But sometimes we move away from that and we come to fads and fetishes. We come to things that are in currency. Vegan is one of those.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
In my childhood, I don't ever remember hearing of people who had gluten intolerance. I'm sure they had gluten intolerance, but it possibly went undetected. Now it's a fad and people find out, and there are ways and means to find out. I'm not denigrating genuine illnesses and allergies to food. Of course, people have food allergies, people have nut allergies, all sorts of allergies. I'm not running that down. Let's talk a little about as a host, a hostess, or whatever you call yourself, this whole business of catering to diverse tastes. A pescatarian who will only have fish, but not other forms of meat. So you may not have had fish on your menu for that given day, but I'm talking about a domestic situation, not domestic. But then you plan for the pescatarian, the one sole fish-eating person amongst you. As a restaurateur, do you always have gluten-free stuff? Are you always prepared to cater to every taste?
Yeah, and the thing, we have to be, because of the law. The law requires us to be able to set out the allergens that we need to set out. Some of our food is naturally gluten free, rice, whatever, you can have that. And, we don't add, so a lot of our salons, are without cream because this is normal food. So we don't kill it by adding cream to everything. So there are a lot of options that people have, which are there. I don't make a huge effort, but it has turned out that we have lots of vegan options. We do niramish, which is a Bengali classic thing.
Yeah.
Yes. So we do have stuff. It's not because I make a huge effort, but we've ended up with a menu which has substantial vegan options, vegetarian options, gluten-free options. I have people who come to my restaurant and say, I'm allergic to onion and garlic. What can you give me? And I can show them the door, but I can't. So I have to say, I can't do anything and all that. And so it's really strange that there are people who will come to Indian restaurants and say, I won't have onions and garlic. I have a very big contingent of Jains, and who write to me in advance, who weep and cry and clap when they leave, because I will cook them an entire meal without, onion and garlic, because I feel that no one else will do it for them. But it is a problem when people start to prescribe and pontificate, and there's a sense of superiority. You have a lot of this over here about, for a long time, or clean eating. As if all of us are eating dirty food. This whole thing of, and then people saying that this is clean eating Chinese, clean eating Indian. This is bakwas, because really, it is rubbish, because really what it does is that it kind of gives you, someone is actually claiming to be, in some ways, eating a superior diet. Again, comes back to the idea that, please, it is a privilege that you're eating. I don't want to know that, you are doing this kind of crazy twist with your food. If it makes you feel superior to me, be happy, go away. But don't stand and try and explain to me, or try for the worst thing to convert me to your kind of cuisine. You have a lot of this happening, of shaming of people who have a lot of sugar, of meat. And, there are, of course, a very good reasons not to have less meat, but it should be your own choice. Don't impose choices on people on what they eat. This is to do with a lot of people who are, food then becomes a battleground. It becomes a way of imposing a majority view on a minority. We all know this in India as well. It's happening in the West as well, where a lot of people are feeling that you should all be eating plant-based food. It's a new thing now, plant-based, vegan.
Well, I have not but you haven't gone the way of lynchings. We are ahead of you. We've stolen a march on you. We have lynchings. We lynch people who eat things that we wouldn't want them to eat.
But we haven't had anyone lynched as yet. But the thing is that but it is it's awkward. It's embarrassing when you see people trying to impose their food views on others. My main thing is that if your food is nice and tastes nice and looks nice, very good. I don't want to know the philosophy behind your food and you trying to explain to me that this is in any way better. It is deeply problematic for me, especially now after the pandemic, when for the first 1 month in London, in the supermarkets, there was no food, no toilet paper, no food. The only thing you could go for, you would get mooli. Nobody wants to buy mooli. So even if the whole supermarket is empty, the radish and the mooli was full and Brussels sprouts. No one wanted to buy that. I also didn't want to buy it. But people panicked.
Yeah, I'm getting this signal saying we have 5 minutes to Q&A. But let's talk of happy things before we close this. We've had a very political discussion and an occasionally contentious one. Let's talk of happy things. Let's go back to childhood. Let's talk about foods that were cooked for special occasions, for festive occasions. In my book, I've written of something that my mother used to call the gharelu dawat, which is a bit of an oxymoron, which means a domestic banquet. So let's say somebody did well in an exam or got appointed as something or the other in school or in college. So she would make that extra effort to make a special meal for that person, cooking their favorite things. So the idea of having a banquet at home, of having fun within limited means, there was that. There was also foods that were cooked for occasions like maybe milad, a chane ki dal ka halwa, which would be made in large quantities for distribution. There would be food that would be made for weddings. A cook would be called and he would make them on wood-fired stoves right there in your home. So there was a whole kind of, what shall I say? There was a whole tradition of special foods, and they varied. You could grade them. special,
Yeah.
ultra special, very
Yeah.
special, ultra special. Some of them you've brought into your menus.
Yes.
You want to
Yeah.
pick out a couple, the Shahi Tukra,
Yeah.
the Ran, for instance,
Yes.
of how you
Yeah.
tailored those things to a Western kitchen for a Western
Well,
audience.
yeah. The thing is that, I was on BBC where I was asked whether the Shahi Tukra, to them seemed very, very English. And I said, no, this is very, very Indian. This is
Yes,
your bread and butter pudding on steroids.
yes.
So I had Shahi Tukra in my book, and it's amazing the number of people who make the Shahi Tukra, who are very interested in this whole story, who have
It's
Googled
delicious,
and
by
read
the
our
way. I
stories and they
love it.
send it to me. So in reverse, I'm getting to know more about my own food because people have been cooking these unusual dishes. So, I think that people should be unafraid. These are celebratory dishes. This is why I want to have a chapter in my book on celebration, because I think this is so much important part of our upbringing. Our childhood memories are those special occasions when you're taking to the table for this dawat. I love the word your mother uses, and this food is cooked. And this is our way of showing love. Now things have changed. But at
Yeah,
that time, how would your nani, dadi, ammi show you that they
yeah,
appreciate you? They'd cook
yeah.
something special for you.
Yeah, we book a table and go out for a meal, whereas there were these people who took all this trouble to create a menu, and they turned the home into a festive place.
Yes, yes.
So let's start taking some questions, Asma. I'm going to read out the first one. Ria says, hearing the stories about food and your memories of childhood, I'd like to ask, how much influence does memory, nostalgia play in your menu? We've already talked about it, but maybe you might want to add.
It plays a very big role because for me, the food is really a homage to my mother, to my heritage. And I've often said this, that the food that I symbolize the food of generations of women, those who are also in their graves. So for me, this is about really, I have had a chance to be on the spotlight. They never got a chance to spotlight their food. So I must speak for them. So yeah, it's very important for me.
Asma, we all have racial memory about food, isn't it? So
Yes.
we've inherited these stories. Falani khala ke kebab, they were divine. Falani
Yeah, yeah.
kaddu ka pulao, it was out of the world. So we've inherited, you and I may not have tasted those dishes, but we've heard our
Yeah.
mothers and grandmothers
Yeah,
talk
yeah,
about
yeah. I've heard
it
all
was
these stories.
made,
Yeah.
pre-made. And there's this thing about haath ka maza. Now,
Yeah.
how do you translate this? What is haath ka maza? So
Yeah.
there were some people who had it and they could
Yeah.
transform something, into something spectacular. Okay, more questions coming up. Do you cook with specific? This is very interesting, and this is for you, Asma. Do you cook with specific measurements or with instinct? Do you stick to the original recipe, or is it a mix and match an option for you?
No, the thing is that it's very strange. I don't cook with a fixed recipe. It took me a very difficult time to write the recipes. Literally, my everything was taken from my hand as I was putting it in measured. Because if I have to think, I cannot cook. Every time the dish will come out exactly the same. You can't run a restaurant and every day the chop tastes different. Then
Yeah.
people will give you a huge whack. So no, it is. I don't know what it is, but it is probably in my hands. I have been able to recreate a dish. Every time it tastes the same, but it is by estimate. But the recipes are all been written on that basis.
You have measuring hands.
Yes, yes. I measure with my eyes first.
Okay. Okay. Kami has a very interesting question. Kami Kidwai is a fellow Londoner, big foodie. Welcome, Kami. He's asking, does pulao feature in Calcutta cuisine?
Yes, and the most classic pulao of Calcutta cuisine is what they call shada pulao, or which is it is white pulao, but it is with nuts and a little bit sweet with caramelized onions on top. So pulao is very much part of the Bengal cuisine, and the best thing is that this is not made with basmati. This is again North Indian uh, I don't want to use the word. I better not use it. No. So it is, in Calcutta is made with the baby basmati, the original basmati.
Yeah.
What in Bangladesh they call kali zira or gulab sur. Little rice, the small rice. The pulao is made with that. So yes, pulao is also a very big part of the Bengali cuisine in the kind of Bengali cuisine of Muslim tradition as well.
Right. And for the uninitiated, let's just say briefly that there's a difference between the pulao and the biryani. Pulao is just with tempering, made with a broth, a yakhni, and a biryani is layered, it's sealed, And of course, the recipe is there in Asma's book, should you want to look it up.
But not the biryani recipe, huh?
Yeah. Biryani, the Calcutta wali biryani, which is, yeah. All right. Aprajita asks, in this period of lockdown, there are people who are living alone, away from their family, and it is believed that food and emotions, love go hand by hand. Any suggestions on how we can make our dishes feel like a little home? Aprajita, that's exactly what we've been talking about. Yeah, Asma, you want to add to this?
Yeah, I think that I think the thing is that it's important to remind yourself that, the most important, I say this a lot, that most, expensive and valuable ingredient you put into a dish is your time. So I think when you cook for yourself, and if it is a lockdown and you're on your own, value that time, put that effort in and heal yourself. Because the thing is that what you are doing, it is like an embrace. When you eat something, it goes inside. It's so intimate. Food is something so beautiful. Give it time. Don't rush it. Give it. And this is where you say, I can taste the love. There's this haat ka maza. It is about patience. It is about sabr. You give it that time and effort. You don't rush it. And then you taste that in your food and you make it for yourself like this. I have a chapter in my book, which is a feast for two. Basically, it is for that person who cooks for two, eats one, and I've told you what to do it with the leftovers the next day. I wanted to have a chapter for that because people have forgotten to respect ourselves. In this rush that all the food is so easily available, cook for yourself, heal yourself, respect yourself, and cook for yourself.
Yeah, you don't have to live on rotis if you're alone, you can. Okay, now this seems a good time to, Asma, bring in the fact that you actually learned to cook when you were in your 30s, living away from home. And so, while not in lockdown, but certainly away from South Asia, from your loved ones, from your family. So that might kind of segue into Aprajita's question that, what were your compulsions in learning to cook at that age?
No, I learned in my, not 30s, 20s, late 20s. And I found it very difficult living in this country. Again, this is 30 years ago. It was very difficult, very isolating. My husband was a terrible cook and a very bad cook. And I didn't know how to cook.
Has he improved, Asma? Has he improved?
No, he stopped cooking once I learned how to cook. I didn't want him to cook anymore. I had enough of the chicken curry and rice. It was not my worst meal. So the thing is that I cooked because for that moment when the food was cooking, I felt I had gone home. And I felt complete. It healed me. It gave me a sense that that girl who left the shores of Calcutta had come to Cambridge, that all was not lost. In that time that I cooked the korma and I made the kosha mangsho and I made aloo dum puri, I felt I had taken back that girl who was lost. I had an arranged marriage. I married someone very different from me, very nice man, but different. And it was not easy. It was not easy. It was a way that I was not lost because everything else was stripped from me in some ways. I lost being with my parents and my beloved city.
But so you recreated a bit of that home.
Yes, it was a way of just staying sane.
Yeah. Okay, so Aruni is asking, there are many who say there is no veg biryani. But what I feel is that biryani is more about the process and perseverance you put in it. What are your comments on that? There are a lot of people who talk about 4 meats, turning an arbi into a fish and a kela into a kebab. Must we look down on that? What's wrong with that?
I don't know. I mean, the thing is that, I think that I have had some very good, what I would call a vegetarian pulao rather than a biryani. And it's been, it's very nice, but it's not something that, I can associate with the food. It's like, telling someone you're going to have shepherd's pie and you produce, Caesar salad to them. It's just this kind of, so if you get the flavors and everything right, maybe yes, but I'm not so sure because I feel that, I have not had very good vegetarian biryani. So I often serve vegetarian pulao with my lamb biryani and I call it a pulao. I think that it's, they are brilliant and they can work really well. But I'm to be convinced. It's not that I have very kind of thing. I am to be convinced now. Maybe I'm being a bit tactful here,
Sure.
but yes.
You are. But so essentially, to answer Aruni, you're saying that it's not a process, but it's the ingredients really that make. So it's not the process of making it with broth in a sealed container. You're not convinced by that.
Yeah.
All right. Now, Om Prakash Parikh is asking, what was the inspiration behind naming your restaurant Darjeeling Express?
Well, I'll be very quick. I had never named the restaurant. I named my supper club, which I started in my own house, Darjeeling Express, because I was trying to think of a name. I had to fill in a tax form when I was setting up the company. It's a name of company, which I hadn't thought. And suddenly I remember the toy train in Darjeeling, this feeling of freedom, of adventure. I was going on a summer holiday. Calcutta used to be so hot, and that was a time, this feeling that you hit the cool of the mountains, that sense of exhilaration. I was so excited when I was starting off my food business. I thought I'm going to name it Darjeeling Express. I wouldn't have named a restaurant that, because it would have led to all kinds of confusion, that it would be a tea shop or whatever. But then it was Darjeeling Express Supper Clubs for 5 years, and then of course when I opened the restaurant, it had to be the same name, because people would stop me on the street and say, "Hey, you, Darjeeling Express." They didn't know my name, but they knew the supper club.
Okay, so another reference to childhood and to memory. Now, there's a very interesting question here. Rachita Akhilesh Jahan is asking, is it true that there are very few references to murg in Mughal recipes? Well, there were other kinds of fowl, maybe not chicken, but certainly partridge and quail and all sorts of other poultry.
Yeah, titar and pigeons. So I think that there possibly we have lost the kind of entire range and repertoire, and then from the time that all of us can vaguely remember the ban on game, eating games happened, and so you couldn't shoot birds, and you could pretty very valid reasons.
Yeah.
So I think that everybody does tend to only think of murg. I am not. Rakhshanda probably knows more than, and lots of other people know a lot more than I do on this one. But I think that there was chicken, but it was probably not the most favored, because there were more exotic things that you could.
Yeah,
birds.
There was other kinds of game, other kinds of poultry, possibly that featured more. And even till our childhoods, where it was not politically incorrect to go hunting, and there was always some shikari in the family who went out and brought game.
Yeah.
So there was always that was added to your menu. Coming from Calcutta, you would remember the hunter that would be made as a way of using up a lot of meat that has suddenly come into the house, and you ran out of ways to I'm digressing from the question of poultry, but talking of shikar and how it was okay. I mean, of course, nobody really goes out for shikar much now, but there were ways and means of cooking things that came into the kitchen by way of shikar.
So for a long time, I served in my restaurant shikar gosht, but made with venison. Because in this country, it is legal to have deer.
Yeah.
And I had this, and I recreated an old family recipe to make shikar ka gosht.
Yeah.
But the thing is that, because I had to get, particular kind of venison only for me, it became too difficult, very expensive, I stopped. Yeah. But I recreated an old recipe of a game. So there are dishes that can be, and for me, it'll be a lot easier here. Yes. But it's the effort of trying to source this material right now, I don't have the time.
Yeah. And the fact that it caters to a niche, increasingly small clientele. Okay, so Sachdev Ramakrishnan asks Miss Khan, you seem accomplished on several fronts. Oh yes, this is very interesting, and this is something I meant to ask. So he's saying that famous chef, PhD in British constitutional law. Please tell us about your second daughter's movement. Asma, this is something I meant to ask you.
The thing is that, I think that a lot of it is a silent problem, where we don't discuss, the reaction of the matriarchs. I will forgive the patriarchs, but I want to take issue with the matriarchs, especially the mother-in-laws who lament, the mothers who have felt so like they have failed when they deliver a daughter. And I personally know of so many people. Yeah, and I know so many people I know who feel a second daughter is a burden. I felt I could talk about it because after my brother was born, my mother never celebrated my brother's birth. And I knew then I was equal. And she has always treated us equal. My brother and I are completely equal. And I felt that I am so secure in the love of my mother and of my father, and I know that my brother and I are equal. I said, let me talk about it. Let me speak for those girls who cannot talk about it. Because the first person you need to address is your own mother.
Yeah.
That, your grief that I was not a boy. Why did you feel this way? Do you love me? Would you have loved a boy more? All these difficult questions I can ask, because I know my mother will say she loves me the most of all them. She loves me more than my brother, and I hope my brother's not watching this. Arif, she loves you too, as well, in case you're watching.
No, but so to come back to the movement,
Yes.
so you've
So
employed
I'm trying to raise awareness. I'm also raising money. And I'm also, in a very small way, celebrating, there are 25 of us who work in the restaurant. So wherever in one of the villages, the second daughter is born, we just do some mithai and some fireworks in a very subtle message, because that is never done when girls are born. But a greater story is to be able to raise this awareness and talk about it. I talk about it publicly here. In this country, a lot of Asian families who came in the 60s and 70s, they still have the same gender bias of people of that time in India. They haven't progressed. So, there's an issue in these families as well in this country, where Asian families behind closed doors, there is a discrimination against girls.
Yeah. Okay, so there's Om Prakash Parikh asking another question. When you found out there was no gas in 10 Downing Street when you went there last Eid, what did you cook without gas?
Oh, what a nightmare it was. It was a nightmare.
And why was there no gas?
Because they don't have a gas connection and it is not safe. So everything is induction. And the thing is that I told them that, I'm going to completely collapse, because what do you want? They say, we want samosas. And I said, what are you going to fry on a... So we had to change the menu a bit, but we got everything from the restaurant and we ran. I mean, the police, I told them after a while, just stop giving us so much security. Obviously, Asian people turning up with baskets of random things, but we fried them in my restaurant and we sent them, and we just kind of kept them cooked in the oven. You can't fry on this. It was, but you can't do, you have to have with samosa and kebab and everything. So we did all of that. But it had to re-establish the whole way we did it.
So Mr. Parikh is very well informed about what you do and what you don't do.
Yes, thank you for following me.
Okay. Now, Rachita Akhilesh Chauhan is asking, do you feel that COVID will bring back the importance of home-cooked meals as opposed to takeaways from chain restaurants? Well, given Facebook, it seems we've all turned into halwais. I mean, all the time we see pictures of things that you would normally buy and would not make at home, like jalebis, or chaat and so on and so forth. And Facebook is awash with pictures of absolutely gorgeous things. So it would appear that, there's an impetus to home-cooked food.
Yes, absolutely. I think that, this is, I'm not at all, I'm very, very upset about the death toll and the suffering and what the medics have gone through. But the main thing is that I think that the earth has told us, look at me, embrace me. When you can see from Siliguri, the Kanchenjunga, because the air is so clear, will you again pollute the earth so much that you don't see it? And I think when people have learned to cook themselves, I think there's a new value and, there's a new respect for our food, which has been great. And I hope people will not forget. Yeah. But I think restaurants that give rubbish food and pass it off as home-cooked maa ke tarah khana, please rebrand yourself. Because now everybody knows what hath ka khana is, what maa ka khana is, and home cook is. And they're probably going to do it better than any restaurant. So I think it's great, and I cook home style food, and I don't feel threatened by the fact that everyone is cooked. I'm very happy because for me, this is an opportunity to celebrate the fact that so many have taken back the ownership of their cuisine. Yeah. This is what we're seeing.
Now, I have a question for you. I've had completely bizarre things in Europe, pineapple in a curry, which we normally wouldn't put. So, stuff like that. I mean, a bread which is bursting with dry fruits. Why on earth? So, do you have customers coming in and saying this is not authentic because their taste buds have been geared to the rubbish, that plasticky chicken tikka masala and that strange thing called balti, and then they eat your food, which is so much more authentic, but it's not sort of glamorous maybe in some ways because it's not bursting with pineapples. How do you deal with that?
Okay, in the beginning, you used to get people who used to look at the dal and say, why is your dal yellow? Dal should be black. Yeah. And this is invariably someone who's not from my culture.
Yeah.
And I was like, where do I start, explain. And this whole thing of, why don't you have naan bread, which is the other thing that hurts me. Why do you say naan bread? And I tell them, we don't have naan, I explain all of this. But somehow recently, I think people are probably feeling embarrassed to ask me, this dal is the wrong color because they
Yeah.
think maybe you are someone now who
Yeah.
might know about food.
Yeah.
So
You
I'm sure
serve
they would
food
ask me this
yellow
question.
dal.
But in
Yes.
the first year before Netflix, hazard people asked me, this is the wrong color. What happened to the dal? Why is it not black?
Yeah.
What happened to the dal? Most of us eat dal that looks yellow.
Yes.
Handful of Punjabis eat black dal. This is not a normal dal. We can't digest this
Yes.
in places like
With
Calcutta.
vast amounts of cream.
Yeah,
Okay. And this business of bhaji being served as a starter, we don't really have a starter,
they had to create this because this whole idea that they think that people Europeans have a starter and a mains and a three course and a dessert. So they have created all these things and they put papad. I mean, the worst thing is this kind of whole idea of putting papad with chutneys, all kinds of random things as starters, because that's what we don't have. People come and say, do you have papad? And I said no. At the end of the meal, if you're very nice, I might give you like a Bengali style with your chutney. But if you ask me, give me papad in the beginning, so 100% I'm not going to give you, because this is not part of our tradition. You eat the papad at the end of the meal in Bengal.
Yeah.
This is the sign that the ghost has said, please get up from the table, stop eating now.
Yeah.
It's totally, it's finished.
Yeah.
I know, I don't fall into this, but too many people are still doing it because they think that's what people want.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Ajit Pradhan, a doctor from Patna, is asking us, how about the elaborate cooking techniques of gastronomy's recent mega obsession, the molecular cuisine? What do you make? There's this business of microgreens, of putting funny things that were never meant to go on top of a particular dish. What is molecular cuisine? You want to talk about that?
The thing is that, I think that, there is of course a space for innovation, for something exciting and interesting. This whole obsession with molecular cuisine and, making, putting half a garden of edible flowers on something. I'll never eat a fly in my life. I'm from Calcutta. There will be a fly in there. I'm never going to eat it. So, this, and also micro herbs, which are grown in a very unnatural way, in strange light, under the ground. They grow them to a certain size. I think that, if your food has to be made to look like a garden in full bloom, you are in the wrong profession. And if your food needs to look like bubble and gas and thing, please go to the lab. Everybody is desperately trying to find a cure for corona. You can go to the lab and start fiddling there and creating little things there. Don't do it with food. This whole idea that there's oxygen flying from here and nitrogen and air and gas and little bubbles. I find that kind of food. I want to eat food that I can touch. That won't go pop on me. And I'm not intimidated. Food. Food should look like food. Maybe I'm old-fashioned. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I agree totally. I'm old-fashioned too. And this business of putting tomatoes in everything. Now, tomato was in my childhood meant to be eaten as a salad, occasionally put with maybe tomato gosht, But then we had the Green Revolution in the Punjab, and we had these hybrid, monstrously large tomatoes, which was so different from the desi tomato that we'd always had. And then now you have people putting tomato in everything, and restaurants are the worst culprit. They put tomato in gravies, which don't require tomato. They put it in all sorts of things.
So and tomato puree as well. I think the whole problem is that, I'm not blaming Punjabis, but I think the problem is that a lot of what is the abundance of Punjabi cuisine, the kind of the wealth of Punjab, people saw this as a superior thing, that, this is something.
No, they were also plentifully available.
And the thing is that, I think that it is very sad because they've come up with this kind of strange Indian cuisine, which is of no region, heavily influenced by Punjabi food. But it is, which is, and Punjabi food on its own is mind-blowing, absolutely incredible. But that also, they do a disservice to Punjabi food by making all this food and with using Punjabi influence without the real soul of Punjab. This way it is really not worked both ways.
Yeah. Okay, now I think we're almost running out of time, but let's take a couple more questions. Shabadjeet Singh Baba asks, Asma, is the food all about taste or fragrance, texture, presentation? What is the primary ingredient, Asma, for you? How should it
I think it's all of that. Because first you eat with your eyes, then then it is touch, and then it is your mouth, and then it's the aroma. So, I think that our food is so beautiful that it is this kind of, it is like a melody. It is different notes that make up this whole thing. You can't just it cannot just be one thing. This kind of single faceted food you find this, I think, in European food, where it is only about the appearance, only about the aroma, only. Our food is everything. Our food is everything. And after you eat it, that, the layering and the thing, and it makes you feel, it lifts you up. And this is the beauty of Indian food. We don't understand. This is why I feel so bad every time I go to India and I see all these new restaurants are some, outside cuisine. We have forgotten about respecting our own cuisine. This is I think, the deepest, the most interesting, layered cuisine in the whole universe. We are just bad storytellers. We have not been able to sell our food. So Italian, German, and French, even German and French, whatever, all of that has taken center stage, leaving us behind. But our cuisine is masterful. It is beautiful. And we should celebrate it and be proud of it.
So possibly what we need in India are more Darjeeling Express, things that are actually not serving restaurant food, but are serving food that is closer to home cooked meals.
Can I just say, this is because we have never honored our women who cook at home.
Yeah.
This is why. This is why, because we think this food is very dismissive. This ghar ka murgi dal barabar, this is the problem. That we think this is of no value because we never valued the women who cooked, which is something I often talk about.
So we've had standalone restaurants like Potbelly, which is serving typically Bihari food and so on. But possibly we need more of those which rely on conventional wisdom, which rely on seasonal produce. We've not really talked about that, but this whole business of what our nani dadis cooked, which relied on seasons, on tasir as in thandi tasir, garam tasir. So in summer, you will have something which has a cooling effect. You will have pai and nehari in winter, trotters, because they will give you heat and warmth. So perhaps what we need are entrepreneurs who are going to think of distilling all of this and somehow bringing it to a restaurant table.
I think it would be great.
Yeah, it seems to be an idea worth considering. Preeti asks, what other Indian cuisine do you enjoy a lot and have cooked? Asma?
Hyderabadi, because, I lived in Hyderabad for a long time. Love Hyderabadi food. I have Hyderabadi, dishes on my menu. I have mirchi ka salan, and I have also khubani ka meetha. So Hyderabadi food, Bihari Muslim food, again, is fabulous because my nani was from Bakhtiarpur. So I have a lot of that as well.
All right. Now, there are more questions, but there were these messages, frantic ones, which I hadn't seen. Time to end the session, Asma. All good things must come to an end. This was lovely.
Thank you so much. I've enjoyed it a lot. And
I love it too.
Proud of you. Thank you.
So over to you, Sanjay. We had a great time. I hope you did too, listening to us. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Asma. Thank you so much, Rakhshanda. Just to put it, I do make a mean pineapple and jalapeno curry with tamarind and turmeric, which I will serve you. So before knocking it, come and taste. Come home and taste that. But for all of you who were listening, as I said earlier, Darjeeling Express was really my last meal just pre-lockdown before I left London on the 3rd of March, and she does some incredible food and really is recreated in the heart of London, something that's so like home in so many ways. Going into a restaurant has the quality and the character of being back at home. So all of you do make a dash to Darjeeling Express or order out if Asma is sort of opening up orders. And I know that she has this 3-month waiting list. But thank you both. That was absolutely amazing. So comforting. I think, talking about food is always so comforting, and the memories and a couple of memories. The conversation triggered a couple of memories of my mother and my grandmother, who are incredible cooks, and of course my aunt. But thank you all, and I'm so sorry we weren't able to answer all your questions or take all your questions. I think they did a brilliant job of trying to get through most of them. But thank you for just sending so many, and maybe we'll send them out to Rakhshanda and Asma and ask them to answer them, and we'll post them back on Facebook. We thank our official radio partners, Red FM Bajate Raho, and we hope you enjoyed this conversation, and hopefully we'll see you back at 9 p.m. for our next session, The Economics of COVID. Zaini Minton Biros in conversation with Mihir Sharma. Zaini Minton Bedos, the editor-in-chief of The Economist, speaks to senior fellow at the Observer Research Foundation, Mihir S. Sharma, on the current economic scenario and the fast-changing world around us, and how the world must find its feet post-COVID. We now present a short extract from the archives of the Jaipur Morning Music Stage featuring Amrit Kaur Lohia. Amrit Kaur Lohia, as many of you know, is a London-based sarangi player and vocalist in the genres of Punjabi folk, jazz, and soul. She's toured internationally as a performer, composer, and workshop facilitator, and has in fact performed at Glastonbury. Lohia trained as a theatre director at the Young Vic and graduated with distinction in history from SOAS, University of London, where she also received her certificate in teaching world music. Enjoy the music. See you back at 9 p.m.
रब मिलदा जंगल फिरियां ते रब मिलदा गाइयां बछियां वे मियां बुलिया रब उन्हां नू मिलदा अते दिलियां सच्चियां अच्छियां last one doesn't really need an introduction. It's probably one of the most famous ones to come out of South Asia.
लाल मेरी आंखों की धड़कन, तेरे बिन कैसे जीऊं मैं, 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 तेरे बिन कैसे जीऊं मैं,
रखियो भला झूले लालन सिंदड़ी दा सेवण दा सखी शाबास कलंदर दमादम मस्त कलंदर अली दम दम दे अंदर लाल मेरी हो लाल मेरी लाल मेरी हो लाल मेरी चार चिराग तेरे बलन हमेशा चार चिराग तेरे बलन हमेशा पंचवा बालन आया भला झूले लालन सिंदड़ी दा सेवण दा सखी शाबास कलंदर दमादम मस्त कलंदर अली दम दम दे अंदर लाल मेरी हो लाल मेरी लाल मेरी हो लाल मेरी ऊंचा रोजा पीरा तेरा ऊंचा रोजा पीरा तेरा हेठ वागे दरे या भला झूले लालन सिंदड़ी दा सेवण दा सखी शाबास कलंदर दमादम मस्त कलंदर अली दम दम दे अंदर लाल मेरी हो लाल मेरी लाल मेरी हो लाल मेरी मामा नू पीरा बचड़े देना मामा नू पीरा बचड़े देना पैणा नू देना वीर मेला झूले लालन सिंदड़ी दा सेवण दा सखी शाबास कलंदर दमादम मस्त कलंदर अली दम दम दे अंदर लाल मेरी हो लाल मेरी लाल मेरी हो लाल मेरी जनन जनन तेरी नौबत बाजे जनन जनन तेरी नौबत बाजे जनन 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 तेरी नौबत बाजे नाल बजे करे आल भला झूले लालन सिंदड़ी दा सेवण दा सखी शाबास कलंदर दमादम मस्त कलंदर अली दम दम दे अंदर लाल में